Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Pearcey Presents the Pearcey Presents podcast.
So it's Pearcey Presents' pleasure to sit down with former footy great who's not your stereotypical buffhead, but rather a genuinely smart bloke who has been highly successful in one of his passions, football, when he was drafted to the Bombers as a 17-year-old. But unfortunately, a lack of opportunities saw Ted being drafted to the Swans at the end of 2005. The Harbour 10, while not always smooth sailing at the start, would see this once skinny boy mature into a man and take down some of the modern day greats such as Buddy Franklin, Matthew Lloyd, and everybody he manned up against in 2012 as he was named in the All-Australian team. Now Ted is the Director of Business Development at Six Park, a robo-advisor startup business. Enough of the intro, now it's time to talk to the great Mr. Ted Richards. Welcome and thank you very much for your time today, Ted.
No worries, Anthony.
So it's been a great pleasure to have a look around the office. It's quite a lovely office you've got here on the corner of Burke and Flinders Street.
Burke and Spencer.
Burke and Spencer. That's why I'm a bit late because I obviously not very good at directions.
I don't think there could be a corner of Burke and Flinders.
As I said, not very good at directions. So we'll get into our first question, mate. Do you still watch a lot of footy these days, or are you more focused on Six Park?
A bit of both. Like I don't find myself watching and engaging in as much football Monday to Friday because tied up with work, but very much still enjoy the game. Okay. So yeah, watch a fair bit of footy on the weekends, but the opportunity to watch some of the footy shows midweeks is gone. Okay, so while you were playing, you were one of those blokes that would watch the footy shows, read the paper, etc. Yeah. I maybe because I was living in Sydney and I wasn't consumed by football all the time. I quite enjoyed watching on the couch shows like that. I do like Front Bar. I always watch Front Bar. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. It's a quality show, isn't it? Yeah. Did you watch it when it was on AFL.com only, or were you more of a No. Just I'm one of the bandwagons. Yeah. So these days you're obviously hugely I don't know, but I'll give it to you, hugely influential at Six Park, being Director of Business. Very nice of you to say that. I'll pass it on to your boss. You're not playing football anymore, is that correct? Yeah, yep. So you're just giving it up, you're not playing any local football? I coach an under-15s team. Okay, yeah. Tremendous. Yeah. And is that something that you could see yourself doing in the future? No. A friend asked me if I'd coach his son's team, and I think he caught me at a weak moment where I think at the time I was getting a bit romantic about, coaching and things like that, just at a very a social kids level, and I agreed to it. And it takes up a bit of time, but it's great fun, and I'm finding it very rewarding for, I guess, the enjoyment and satisfaction that the kids are having. And is that the first year this year? Or? Yeah, first and potentially only. Go out on top, hopefully. Yeah. And do those boys know who you are and the career that you had? I tell them. I bet you do. I think that's part of the reason why he asked if I'd coach his team. There was 12 games last year, and unfortunately I only won 2, and I think the kids weren't having too much enjoyment with their football, and it was looking like the team may disband, and so I asked if I'd jump on and help out. So I agreed, and it reinvigorated the kids and the team, and we've started off undefeated. Oh, master coach, super coach. Yeah. That's tremendous. I don't know if there's one and only year, mate. Well, you could stretch up. Yeah, we're for the stars. At the time of recording, it's round 4, so there's still a long way to go for us. But at least we've doubled the amount of wins that we had last year. Exactly right. Yeah. You never know who might be knocking on the door tomorrow. Oh, we'll see. You'll have to let me know. So going back to the start, how would you describe a young Ted Richards? Well, for the start of my football journey, I guess it depends on how far you want to go back, because football's always been something that's important to me, but I was fortunate enough to get drafted when I was 17. And I was raw. I was I was mature, but I still had so much to learn. And I got drafted to Essendon, and I was very excited about that because I was a huge Essendon fan. And, and originally, I think I was pretty happy initially just being there because, because I was friends with these guys that I looked up to, whereas I should have, if in hindsight, had the approach right from day one that I don't care who you are and what you've done, I'm going to take your spot.
Okay. And is that advice that you could give to people just in general, not so much just to be like ruthless? I don't know how I'm going to try and say this, but always strive to be, no one's better than you, that you can always strive to be better?
Yeah, I'm not.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's relevant to every walk of life and everyone's career path. But football, when you're on 1 and 2 year contracts and there's only a finite time, you can demonstrate what you can do. In hindsight, I do recognise that I was early days just didn't have the hard edge to force my way into the team that I should have, and I quickly adjusted to that. Well, tried my best to, but that is something that I try to tell young guys that put your birth certificate aside. Once you're at a football club, it doesn't matter how old you are, the best 22 will be picked.
Absolutely, and it would have been hard walking into a Premiership side because you guys won the flag in 2000. That's correct.
Yeah, and I think that only put the Premiership players on a higher pedestal, with James Hird, Matthew Lloyd, Scott Lucas, all these guys.
Legends of the AFL and the club.
That used to be. I used to have James Hird's number on my back, and all of a sudden I'm running next to them and trying.
It's a kid's dream.
Yeah. Whereas it's great to have a balance of both that and I guess that ruthless edge.
I would have been like a kid in a candy store. Like that would have just been like for a 17-year-old boy. If I put myself in that position, I would have just been like you. I'd have been running around just going, "These are my mates. We're going out for dinner, kicking the footy with these guys." It would have just been an out-of-body experience. So at school, how would your teachers describe you? Because you seem like a very smart, intelligent man.
That's a question I've never been asked before. I think I had different levels of focus for different subjects. I think I could have been a pest in language classes, which was never a skill set that I could master, let alone the English language. But I think other subjects just ticked with me, and I was a pretty good student.
So you would have loved maths, obviously, being in the finance industry?
Yeah. Maths made sense to me.
And as we'll get into it later, I know that your father gave you a book at the age of 17 that stuck with you, and that's, I think, led you on a journey of sometimes costly, but ultimately, hopefully now, paying the bills and some. But we'll cover that off shortly. And you said earlier that you always had a love for football. Was that always a dream of playing AFL football, or did you want to be a fireman when you were growing up, or do you not really have a bit hazy on what you wanted to be when you were growing up?
Oh, there was always interest in certain things, but architecture and football. Okay. I don't know why, but architecture and football were the two things. And when I got drafted, I couldn't study architecture part time at university. So I chose commerce, and
that's tremendous.
And I loved it.
Absolutely. That's what you were doing in Sydney? Is that correct? You completed a Bachelor of Commerce at the University of New South Wales and a Master of Applied Finance.
Yes, yeah. So I started studying down here and transferred up to University of New South Wales. Finished off my Bachelor of Commerce and then did a Masters of Applied Finance,
along with 2 internships as well.
Yeah, I did 2 years at Citigroup in research sales. So working with some stockbrokers and speaking with some fund managers about stocks and companies and equities, and then moved into equity analysis. So I went from the sell side over to the buy side, working under a fund manager, doing my own research, trying to add some value to the business, and I did 4 years there. Yeah, and this is whilst I was still playing.
And how did you manage that? So,
admittedly, it was just 1 day a week.
But still.
Yeah, and so I'd do university at night and footy most days, and then on the day off, I'd work.
Because you would have started when the footy, was it semi-professional?
No. Football was professional in 2001.
Okay.
It was like you'd have your, as you do now, a midweek day off because your weekends are fully consumed with football commitments. But it's been professional, I think, pretty much since the mid-90s.
Okay, of course. And then with that, so I know it's now mandatory that the players study or do a trade during their, I think it's one of their days off. Did you do your uni courses? Was that mandatory, or is that something that you just had an interest in and that you could see that footy wasn't going to go forever, and you had an interest and you wanted to set yourself up for after footy?
Yeah, it was a bit of both. I think the underlying reason why I wanted to pursue study so much is that I never felt entirely comfortable as a footballer that I was going to have a 16-year career.
Okay.
And that I wanted to be fully prepared to the best of my ability that if and when football finished, that I had made the most of my opportunities. Because, I was very lucky to play for 16 years, but there was times over those where I thought that football was going to be done with me rather than me being done with football, and signed a lot of one-year deals, and there's not great security that. So I thought, well, whenever football does finish, let's make sure that I'm in the best position for me to be in. And
was one of those examples in 2010, I think it was, doing some research, that you were tempted to give up football, or you may have thought football was done with you and you were going to move to Switzerland with your brother, possibly?
Yeah, so in 2010, Swans got off to a bad start of the season, and I was one of the players that got dropped. I ended up having 8 weeks in the reserves. I was out of contract that year, and I would have been 27, and I thought that there's a fair chance that I may have got the tap on the shoulder at the end of the season to say that thanks but no thanks. Yeah. And I had an older brother that was living in Sweden at the time, and he had done an MBA over at the Stockholm School of Economics, and I thought I looked up to him and still do, and I thought, well, that's something that I'd like to do too, and that was the plan up until Craig Bolton got injured, got me an opportunity to get back into the team, and I played some of the best football, and then from there my football career just went up.
Blossomed.
Yeah, it really did.
That's unbelievable. And I know I've got it for a little bit later, but we might as well touch on it now. You've got a younger brother, Xavier.
Yep.
Weird, not so much weird, but an unusual story. He played a couple of years at the Swans. I think he managed 13 or 14 games in the couple of years. And I know I shouldn't be talking on your behalf, but I believe that that's one of your career highlights, was getting the chance, even though he was sub in the red vest, running out with your brother. That was always a bit of a dream of yours.
Yeah, and it really came from nowhere. So we had the one game together. It was a Friday night football.
Gee.
And playing Carlton at the SCG. Mitch Morton pulled out in the warm-up. And Xavier, who was put down on paper as an emergency, next thing was told by John Longmire that he'd be playing. And so it was very exciting to have that game together.
Do you think it was better at being a last-minute thing than knowing the Thursday or the Wednesday before? Do you reckon you would have got much sleep the night before, or it's hard to tell, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure Mum and Dad would say that they would have loved to get a heads up so they could have come
they weren't there.
But that's not the way that
footy rolls.
Yeah, no.
But that's something that no one can take away from you.
Oh yeah, I know, and it's not just a highlight of my football, but it's a highlight of life.
That's fantastic. Well, can you pinpoint why you don't think, because he played in the grand final, and then it was his choice, from what I believe, to go on the market and see, obviously due to lack of opportunities that we'll get to you with through the Bombers. Why no other AFL team decided to pick him up?
Nah, so he wanted to test the market because Swans have got salary cap issues, and offered him a contract, or albeit base, and when Zav, unfortunately tested the market, which he's in his right to do.
Absolutely.
Swans decided to withdraw their offer, and the rest has been quite public, and the rest is history.
So that's what I don't necessarily like about football these days, that player is it's changing a little bit these days, but it's all well and good for players to be shopped around, but when the player wants to have a look at different options, they're kind of outcasts.
Yeah, well, I guess it all depends on how much bargaining power you've got, because there are plenty of players that can test the market, and it's a good outcome, but it's unfortunately not for everyone.
Absolutely, it's unfortunate, and I know that he's the last bit of research I did, that he got lots of offers from teams around Australia. He decided to play for the Sydney Uni team, and he's also studying Masters of Business at Sydney Uni.
Yeah, and so he had to balance up whether he'd join the VFL, the Sandful, or the Waffle, and when Sydney Uni came to him with a opportunity for a scholarship into their Masters program, he had to really balance up the opportunity that was going to do to set him up in life, or to pursue football at the state leagues down south, and he weighed it all up and thought that he's going to make a decision based on the rest of his, potentially, how employable he is for the rest of his life.
Yeah, there's not many businesses that'll employ you just because you can kick a footy, is there?
Yeah.
Did you make lots of contacts or networking opportunities while you're at the Bombers and Sydney as well?
Well, I played the game for 16 years and have made a lot of friends and people within the football industry for different stakeholders, whether they're teammates or football coaches, managers, fans, members. So 16 years of life's a long time. You meet a lot of people. So
Yes.
and I'm proud to say that I got a lot of friends and great memories too.
That's fantastic. And you're also on the AFLPA board, is that correct, for 4 years?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, so I hopped off that when I retired, and that was a privilege to be given that trust to be overseeing. I guess, how do I say this? Overseeing the responsibilities of speaking on behalf of the playing group, and like I said, it was a privilege, and I'm very proud to say that I was part of the most recent collective bargaining agreement where I earned the current players a very handy pay rise.
So you'll get a couple of % out of them, or even just 0.2% from each player, yeah?
Oh,
I'm sure they'll flick that to you, mate.
No, I was the recipient of players before me that negotiated great terms for me, and so it was part and parcel of passing on the baton.
That's true. With because I believe I obviously haven't gone through line by line through the players' agreement and with the media and the AFL and stuff like that, but I believe there was a big push for the media to get more of an access to players. Are you a big American sports fan?
Well, I'm not a big American sports fan for no other reason than
You just not.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I can empathise with their want and need to get more access to, I guess, to further engage the TV audience, and I can appreciate that. And I think there is a middle ground where they can get what they want, but players still feel like they've got some privacy. I'm just not sure, what's out of bounds. I think it's quite subjective in that some players will be quite open to speak to the media, but there are people that get quite shy and don't like that.
True. Do you think that there is a idealistic picture to make everyone happy, or as you say, it is like really player to player, that some players are more camera shy, so to speak, and then there's other blokes that like to say it, but then you've got the club saying, oh, you can't say this, and that's probably the other thing. It's so sterile to a degree. Do you think that it is the clubs that are trying to make the players toe the company line, so to speak?
Oh yeah, but I think that's fair enough, because it's a team sport and you've got to represent the football club when you speak and take that into account. So I can understand that I can appreciate why boring answers are given, as and people say, you're just speaking, just repeating the same things that have been heard before, but maybe it's because someone's not comfortable speaking in front of the microphone, so they can lean back on the old lines.
Do you think that you could allow the more, not even so much the boisterous, but the people that are more comfortable in front of the mic, a little bit more leeway? Because from my perspective, if you let them speak their mind, obviously there is a bit of common sense, and the more I look, there's probably the less common sense there is. But that would make a little bit more excitement. I know the club's very anal about their sponsorship and the reputation out in the marketplace, but if you create that buzz and excitement from a player, you will get more media coverage because a player is actually giving their true thoughts.
Yeah, we're all human, so I reckon there's no line. It's a very subjective term as to what people think within themselves is acceptable or not, and I'm happy for people to have their own call as to what they think.
True. So you played at the Sandy Dragons before being drafted. Is there a few players that stand out that you played alongside and against during that time at Sandringham?
Yes, there is. Chris Judd.
Jeez. Yeah. Yep.
So Chris and I played junior football together from under nines.
Really?
And we grew up in Sandringham together. The same road, Fernhill Road.
Oh,
and
taught him everything you knew.
And Chris was always a standout from very early days. The great thing about the TAC Cup is, and I was zoned to the Sandringham Dragons, is that it makes you become, I guess when you're playing club football, you can be a big fish in a small pond.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to statewide competitions and you start to see other people and other players and how committed they are. And you start to raise the benchmark as to what you set yourself to be able to achieve. And that's what happened with it when I went to the Sandringham Dragons. I looked around and there were guys like Nick Reese, Stephen Green, that all were lucky enough to get drafted, and their attitude at the age of 15, 16, 17 was just phenomenal. And I really looked up to those guys. And Dylan Smith was another one.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, I've got to get up to their level.
Okay. So is that where you think you're probably lacking the most? Maybe not so much skill-wise, but attitudinal?
I think I had a good attitude.
Yeah.
I think I
because you were certainly skinny, mate. When you were drafted, you were a rake.
I had a good attitude. I was a hard worker and things like that. But these guys were elite, and and I was like, all right, I just reset as to what I want to get out of myself.
And do you think that probably makes players? So obviously, I'm not built to play football, especially these days. But at AFL level, do you think it is that commitment that makes a good player, or a great player, stand out from a good player?
Yeah, I think I've always thought that talent is a dangerous word, and that if I could be described as anything, grit would be a word that I'd love to be described as. I think it's a fantastic word, and grit encompasses many things, and one of which is hard work and determination. And I think if that is ultimately what's going to drive the success of someone's football career.
Would you describe grit be the overwhelming word that you would describe the game that you held Buddy Franklin to no goals? Or just dominance?
Oh, yeah, it's one of my favourite games that day.
Oh, so I bet it is, mate.
I was lucky enough to play for it, quite a while, and only once in my football career was I tagged, and it was that day.
Really?
Yeah, I was tagged that day.
Tremendous.
I was playing fullback on Buddy Franklin, I was tagged.
You were tagged.
Yeah.
Big Bud. And he's the bloke on God knows how much money now.
Oh,
He should be thanking you for that as well. Probably ran him into form.
not at all. Buddy's he's earned that himself.
Oh, I don't know. I reckon you ran him into form, mate. You didn't have that goalless game.